13 up. What's that I hear? Continuing interview with Paxton. Okay, sounds up, sounds rolling.
It's not hard to move the pen. I get ideas and I move the pen, but it's just brutal to get them decent, finished, where you're ready to let them be heard.
Sounds rolling. Okay, roll 13, take 10.
Okay, we talked about the idea of folk musically correct, whether it
Yeah.
people's repertoire and styles. It's a great phrase, by the way. So.
Sure. Well, the arguments about what was valid music and what was not valid music were just endless. The exquisitely boring argument about what is a folk song. Everybody has an opinion, and it wasn't dancing on the head of a pin kind of stuff. People constantly refining the definitions as if anyone cared. I mean, it's a good song, sing it. That's just the way I felt. I thought it was, interesting that Alan Lomax, who was, very, very, when I say opinionated, I don't mean to make it sound pejorative. Alan had strong opinions about what constituted a folk song, and they were very, principally academically sound. Nevertheless, when he put out his book, The Folk Songs of North America, he included Dark as a Dungeon and 16 Tons that were, written by Merle Travis, because he felt justifiably that these songs were so great and so evocative that they belonged there. So they were, as many exceptions as there were rules. And we would have endless fights about this, about, who was selling out. Selling out was, be cast into the outer darkness if you were selling out. The only problem was the definition kept shifting, People kept trying to figure out what was folk musically correct and hew to that line. It was another one of these things you forget all about. But
Well, along those lines, did you see the Beatles in February 1964 on Ed Sullivan?
Oh, yeah. Well, when the Beatles came, that completely changed everything. Suddenly, rock and roll music was no longer an insult to the intelligence. Suddenly it was good again. It had life again.
Once again, for me, there's motorcycles.
Okay. When the Beatles came.
Well, when the Beatles came in '64, that changed the whole game. Suddenly, there was no room at the top of the pop charts for pop folk anymore. Well, some of it would hang on and everything, but the time when any three guys with the same shirts and three guitars could get a contract was gone. Overnight. Ended. Only the best of the pop could survive after that. Peter, Paul and Mary, Kingston Trio, Limelighters, only they could make it. And suddenly rock and roll was exciting. It was good. It was musical. And the kind of long gray years of the Dick Clark manufactured pop stars was also gone. So then you would have guys like the night that Roger McGuinn showed up at the Gaslight and did a guest set, playing a 12-string guitar and sang a couple Beatles songs acoustically. Had to have been a watershed night. I mean, that was a sea change that night, because he went on and formed the Byrds and changed or influenced the change of American pop music. He was the accompanist for the Chad Mitchell Trio during my brief tenure there. And then he accompanied Bobby Darin for a while when Bobby Darin was doing acoustic stuff. And he's the one who found the 12-string Rickenbacker and made that distinctive sound that you hear in the Byrds. A lot of guys then. David Crosby, I used to see him in the Hootenannies playing a nylon string guitar. Then the next time I saw him was in '63 in California. He had just been on some bus tour of a like a Hootenanny kind of show, and then the next thing I knew, he was plugged in and playing in the Byrds. Now a lot of people got upset about it. The famous incident at Newport. I wasn't there that year, so I can't report firsthand what happened, but certainly the big furor over Dylan plugging in and singing electric songs, and either leaving the stage in tears at booze or not, or who knows. I wasn't there, so I can't say. But it certainly enraged a lot of people. Initially, I didn't know which way. I didn't realize at first that both were okay. You know, like a lot of people, I said, you got to choose sides. Which side are you on? And initially, I said, well, you know, acoustic for me. And I was sorry that Bob had done what he did. I wish he had stayed doing what he did. A lot of stick in the mud kind of thinking, but it didn't take long before I said, hey, you know, it's music. It's good music. You know, it's fun. So, I mean, I remember the time that Bob, in the Woody Guthrie show, the memorial concert for Woody in Carnegie Hall, was the first time I heard Bob sing with the band. And he did Eleanor Roosevelt, and I forget, 2 other songs, Woody Guthrie songs at the Woody Guthrie farewell concert with an amplified band. I mean, what a strong thing to do. What a dangerous thing to do, risky thing to do, but it was great.
You wrote a famous column for Sing Out called Folk Rot shortly after Newport 65.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that now?
Yeah, I wrote this column for Sing Out, and was it in '65, called Folk Rot?
Early 66, yeah, late 65.
Yeah, and these little white flecks you see around here are paper as I eat my words. We all stand up and boldly take stands at certain times that we later wish we'd shut up about. I was dead wrong. That's what it comes down to. It wasn't folk rot. There's been a ton of brilliant music made, and my column is justifiably long since forgotten, until you reminded me of it.
Do you think there was any lasting impact of those days in the 60s, that folk boom of 64, 63, 65, that carries over to today? Or through the years?
Do I think there's a lasting boom, a lasting effect from it? Yeah, absolutely. I think music, and indeed I think politics, have changed. I think you could trace a line back from the music, from the movement, right up to President Clinton. I think the influences are there so clear. I think we had much more of an effect than we thought we had. I mean, we started out to try to change the world in song. And then we had certainly those of us who had any kind of consciousness at all realized that, you know, come on, we were just songwriters doing what we could do. You don't change the world with a couple songs. And now I think maybe we did a little bit. I think that the songs we wrote went into the consciousness, at least for this generation. Who knows? Eternity takes care of itself. But I think it did have an effect, and a good effect. I think that writing songs about what mattered to us inevitably meant we were writing songs about things that mattered to other people. And that a certain number of those people were going to agree with the point of view behind those songs. And sing them, make those songs their own. So I don't think there's any doubt that that the work was worth doing.
Do you consider yourself a folk singer?
Do I consider myself a folk singer? Oh, absolutely. What else? What else are you going to call me? Singer, songwriter, folk singer? I mean, you're not going to call me a pop singer. I'm not a rock singer. I'm not a jazz singer. What the hell am I? I'm a folk singer. I mean, I started out singing traditional folk songs, and then I began writing songs in that vein. So what else am I? I mean, you call Woody Guthrie a folk singer. Why wouldn't you? I mean, he started out singing folk songs and then began writing songs in the folk vein. We're folk singers.
Just a little bit more.
Okay.
We've got...
Want to cut and save a few frames?
Pardon?
Did you want to cut and save a few
You have
frames?
another question?
No, I can go right now. One of the big things that happened in the early 60s was what's been dubbed rediscoveries. They use the term rediscovered to talk about a lot of the Delta blues,
Yeah.
and guys like Ralph Rinsler and John Cohen were finding southern whites.
Yeah.
Did you get to know any of those guys?
Oh yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about some of those folks.
I remember one night I'd heard about Doc Watson from a Folkways recording, and someone said Doc Watson is going to play tonight, and it was in some little bitty club, not even it was a restaurant, just 2 blocks away from the gas. I don't think there was ever a show there before or since, and you could only cram about 25 people in there. But I got over there and I heard Doc play for the first time, and it was earth shaking. I mean, the guy was so wonderful even then. And then Doc began playing at the Gaslight whenever he'd come to New York. So I got to know him, and he'd bring his tape recorder and he'd tape the shows, and he learned some songs of mine off my shows and did them. And I got to know Doc pretty well. And then Mississippi John Hurt also played at the Gaslight regularly and for 2 weeks at a time. So we'd hear John 4 or 5 times a night. And I mean, to our credit, we knew what a rare experience this was. We knew how lucky we were to be hearing this music night after night. Son House came in and did some guest sets. Reverend Gary Davis would play there quite a bit. I got to hear him a lot. But I got to know.
Okay, we're out. I'm going to finish up with
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
topic and
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit about some
This
of
will
those
be the
guys.
last round.
Yeah, this will be.
Omar, don't reload.
Yeah.
Going to camera roll number 14.
Don't reload after this.
Oh, okay. Correct. My boo-boo. Still on camera roll number 13. Take Paxton. Take 11 up.
No.
Okay.
All right, we're still on camera roll 13. 11 up.
14.
Oh, this was a change.
Change
the roll.
14.
14. My mistake. Camera roll 14.
Yeah.
Paxton. Take 11.
Hey, Davey.
You can roll, Dave. He's got speed.
Good.
Yeah.
Mark it.
Row 14, take 11.
Were you done? You were-
Yeah, I of all these rediscovered fellas, and they were wonderful. The ones I really knew were Doc. Doc and I are still friends, and John Hurt. They were just princes.
Did any of these fellas, and I think of John Hurt in particular, but it could have been anybody in your experience, did any of these guys feel total culture shock? John Hurt
Oh.
was dug out of the earth in
Yeah.
Mississippi and brought to Manhattan.
Yeah, John. As I heard the story, when they found John in Avalon, Mississippi, he initially was very frightened. He thought it was the FBI coming for him or something. He just, he hadn't given a thought to it for years, although he was still playing. And suddenly, here was John Hurt in Greenwich Village, New York. Well, first of all, here he was in Newport, sitting on a kitchen chair on a stage in front of 18,000 people, singing the stuff he'd been singing for years and having the place explode. He was a very mild, very shy man. So I'm sure it was just unbelievable for him.
You ever talk to him about that at all, or get any sense of it directly?
Well, you'd ask John, how you doing, John? You getting along? Oh yeah. He wouldn't be very forthcoming about, he wanted you to feel at ease. He wanted you to feel comfortable. So if something was upsetting him, I don't think he would have told me. I didn't know him that well to be that close to where he'd tell me that. So you'd see John looking around him a little bit with a what in the world? It sure was not Avalon, Mississippi. I'll tell you that. But he was a very spiritual man, and I think he was well looked after. Dick Waterman was just dedicated to taking care of John and seeing that he was well looked after and got paid and everything was okay. So I know we had John and Dick Waterman over for dinner one time, and Dick was like a mother hen with John, and that was good because John, you know, obviously John on his own in New York wouldn't have known what to do, or Philadelphia or Boston or something like that, but he really seemed to be enjoying the attention and the pleasure that he was giving people. He really seemed to be happy about that.
Tell you a quick story to illustrate a question, and I don't know if the story's probably not true, and if it is true, the participants in the story probably
If it's not true, it's too bad.
Right. The story is a character cast with Lightning Hopkins and John Sebastian, as I heard it, and
Mhm.
the gist of it doesn't have much of a punchline, but the gist of it is that Lightning, who I understood could be fairly cantankerous when he wanted to be, would picked up pretty quickly on how this white kid from New York City idolized him.
Mhm.
Didn't particularly know why or care why, but it was kind of a white boy carrying my guitar, white
Mhm.
boy light my cigarette, and John would run there. And, you know, I don't know if it's true or if it was those people, but was there any sense of absolutely romanticized hero worship on the part of the city singers for these old guys simply because they were old?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Particularly young guys whose musical direction was taking them that way. You know, who were working on blues or of various kinds. They would absolutely worship these guys. I mean, the guys would just hang on every note Reverend Gary Davis would play. They'd take lessons with him. And when Son House showed up and did a guest set, I mean, suddenly it was like the word went out, and every little white guy in Brooklyn with a guitar was suddenly in the Gaslight, trying to steal licks. So yeah, there was a lot of hero worship.
I think we're done.
Yeah,
We got,
yeah.
you got your time.
Okay, we can cut. Great.
That's a print.
That's a print.
Print that.
Okay, this is still a continuation of sound rule number 7. What's that I hear? On the 19th of May, 1993, we got an interview with Dave Von Rock. We're still running a 30 hertz center track pilot tone, half track mono.